You have seen the familiar documentaries about human evolution, where brave men wield primitive spears to fight massive prehistoric beasts and save their vulnerable tribe. But the camera always cleverly cuts away before the silent starvation sets in, completely ignoring what happens when those celebrated hunters return home with absolutely nothing. History deliberately hides a profoundly darker, systematically buried truth about who actually kept our fragile lineage alive, revealing an uncomfortable biological reality that almost all of us are simply not prepared to sit with today. The illusion was shattered. For generations, the story of human survival has been painted with the exact same heroic brush. We are told of the mighty hunters, the strong men who bravely ventured into the unforgiving wilderness with primitive spears to conquer massive beasts. They are depicted as the ultimate saviors of our species, returning to the campfire with meat to sustain the tribe. This is the grand, romanticized epic of evolution that we have all been deeply conditioned to accept without question. But this victorious narrative completely ignores the brutal, unforgiving mechanics of prehistoric reality. Hunting large game was never a reliable triumph. It was a chaotic, incredibly dangerous gamble with an exceptionally high failure rate. Tracking and killing massive animals took days, sometimes weeks, and more often than not, those celebrated expeditions ended in utter exhaustion and crushing defeat. The men returned with empty hands. They returned with absolutely nothing. And in a harsh landscape where winter was rapidly approaching, and daily calories were the only currency that mattered, returning with nothing meant a systematic descent into starvation. The grand illusion of the conquering hunter is completely dismantled by the quiet, creeping reality of famine. When the spears entirely missed their intended mark and the promised meat simply never arrived, the fragile tribe still needed to eat to survive another brutal night in the cold. The romanticized heroes were utterly helpless against the recurring threat of starvation. The men hunt, but what happens to everyone else? Who actually kept the vulnerable children from dying when the celebrated hunters inevitably failed their mission? Survival required a constant, unspoken sacrifice that mainstream history has deliberately chosen to systematically overlook for centuries. The answer is not found in the bloody glory of the hunt. The truth lies with those who never picked up a weapon. To find the truth, we must leave the shadows of prehistory and look at a living, breathing reality in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Among the Hadza tribe, hunter-gatherers who still walk the ancient landscapes of East Africa, the daily struggle against starvation is not a theory. It is a relentless, recurring reality. When the men fail to secure meat, which happens with terrifying frequency, entire families are left entirely exposed, systematically eliminated by the brutal math of caloric deficit. Yet they do not starve. The catastrophic threat of famine is completely dismantled by an unexpected force: the older women. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes observed a profound biological mechanism at work, formulating what is now recognized as the grandmother hypothesis. Women who had completely passed their reproductive years, who could no longer bear children of their own, did not simply fade into the background as evolutionary burdens. Instead, they stepped into the most critical role of survival. These grandmothers engaged in intense, back-breaking foraging day after day. They dug for deep tubers, gathered tough plants, and provided a steady, utterly reliable flow of daily calories when the hunters returned empty-handed. This was not merely supplemental food. It was the foundational energy of the entire lineage. By taking over the exhaustive work of gathering and feeding the weaned children, they directly allowed younger mothers to reproduce again sooner. More importantly, the immense caloric contribution of these older women drastically reduced the staggering rates of child mortality. Children who would have otherwise perished in the unforgiving lean seasons survived solely because of the calloused hands of their grandmothers. The extended post-reproductive lifespan of human females was not a biological accident or a slow, meaningless decline. It was an incredibly powerful evolutionary adaptation forged in the absolute necessity of keeping the vulnerable alive. While the men chased the fleeting glory of the hunt, the grandmothers systematically guaranteed the survival of the next generation through their endless daily quiet devotion. They brought life. But this is not just the story of one single tribe. It was a deliberate evolutionary design. To understand how deeply this social behavior permanently altered our entire species, we must look far beyond the mere physical act of daily foraging and deeply examine the invisible genetic architecture of human evolution. For centuries, modern society has completely misunderstood a pivotal phase of human life. Menopause has long been viewed simply as a catastrophic failure, a slow, useless degeneration of the female body. But the truth is far more profound and intensely calculated. It was never a meaningless decline. It was a brilliant, highly tactical evolutionary retreat. When women completely cease reproduction, they are not losing their evolutionary purpose. They are deliberately redirecting their life force to fiercely protect the fragile lineage they already created. Advanced mathematical models analyzing our ancient evolutionary timeline have completely dismantled the traditional assumptions about human aging. These models proved a stunning reality: the dramatic surge in human longevity, the exact reason we can live decades past our prime, directly evolved from grandmothering. By permanently stopping their own reproduction, older females systematically eliminated direct competition for scarce resources and poured all their biological energy into the next generation. The math is cold and undeniable. The lifespan of our species was radically extended not because we became better hunters, but because older women forcefully kept their helpless grandchildren from starving. This is not just abstract ancient history disconnected from your reality. Written into your DNA is a record of this exact sacrifice. Every extra decade you get to live, every single year you experience beyond your youth, is a direct physical inheritance from prehistoric women who stopped bearing children so that yours could survive the absolute darkest, most unforgiving winters. You literally carry the genetic legacy of their calloused hands and their quiet, relentless devotion within your cells. The extended human lifespan was never a gift from the proud men who bravely fought the savage beasts. It came from the shadows. The women survived. And the profound mechanism that ultimately granted humanity the unprecedented power of a long, resilient life was not a sharpened weapon forged from bone or heavy stone. It was biological. When we look back at the complete picture of human evolution, we completely misunderstand the true enemy. The greatest threat to humanity was never the massive, terrifying beasts roaming the ancient world. The ultimate recurring enemy was always time and the slow, systematic creep of starvation. For centuries, we have been blinded by the romantic illusion that we survived because of fierce men wielding bloody spears. But the cold biological truth completely dismantles that popular myth. Our fragile species did not persist through brutal winters and crushing famines because of glorious hunting conquests. Humanity survived entirely because of the quiet, relentless daily labor of older, wrinkled hands carefully gathering every single scattered seed and digging for deep roots in the unforgiving dirt. The heroes fight, but the grandmothers endured. There is a kind of survival that history does not know how to honor. It is not written in stone monuments or loudly celebrated in epic tales of battlefield victory. It is written quietly in the warm breath of every child who lived to see another dawn. We owe our entire existence to the silent protectors who never once asked for any recognition. They safely kept us from fading completely into the cold, empty dark. The women survived.